Today I'm going to teach you how to factor using the AC method, or another name for that would be grouping. What we're doing here by factoring is we're taking a trinomial and we're putting it back into two binomials. If you remember multiplying two binomials more than not, your answer was a trinomial. When we talk about the AC method, we're going to be using the number in front of the x squared and the number at the end that doesn't have an x at all, your constant. Before I get started on my factoring, let's remind ourselves about multiplication. And I'm going to take something simple as x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now there were lots of ways that we multiplied, but I'm going to just use the FOIL method, which is I'm going to do my first terms, then my outside ones, then my inside ones, and then my last. So my first terms are x times x, so x squared. My outsides are my x and 3, so 3 times x is 3x. My insides are 2 times x, which is 2x. And then my last are my 2 times a 3, which is a 6. And as you remember, usually in the middle are two terms that are like terms, and we can put them together. So I have an x squared plus 5x plus 6. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go backwards and go back to the binomials. All right, here's our first trinomial. And I want you to look at a couple things. First of all, do you notice how it ends with a plus 4? That means in FOIL, if I were to get my two binomials and multiply them, the two numbers to get to the 4 have to have the same sign, because that's the only way to get a positive answer. So it could be two negatives or two positives. That's something to remember. And then whatever we have has to add or subtract up to 5x. Just remember this, if this is a plus at the end, the signs are going to be the same. We're always going to be adding to get to that middle number. So the first thing I do is my A times my C, the AC method. So 1 times 4 is 4, and I'm going to find out the factors of 4. So that's 1 times 4, 2 times 2. Then I'm looking for one of those pairs that will add up to my 5. Well, that's easy. It's right here. Next, I'm going to rewrite my polynomial. So instead of saying 5x, I'm going to put the 1 and 4. 1x plus 4x plus 4. It's kind of like getting that O and the I all set up there from your FOIL. And this right here, 5x, should equal this. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into two groups. And I'm just going to focus on the first side of the slash line. And I'm going to get that greatest common factor. So if you haven't watched the greatest common factor video, you need to watch that first. And so the biggest number I can pull out is a 1. So I'm not going to actually show my 1. And the biggest amount of x's, remember, is always your lowest x there. So x. Then x times what is x squared? X. And x times what is 1x? Just a 1. Bam, done. Then I'm going to put my plus sign here. Whatever this sign is goes right here. And then I'm going to say, okay, what's my greatest common factor out of 4x and 4? Well, that's a 4. And since the end number there does not have an x, I can't pull out an x. And so 4 times what is 4x? X. 4 times what is 4? A 1. And you should notice that these two are the same. If they're not the same, you did something wrong. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that one of my binomials, x plus 1. And then my other binomial are the two things on the outside, the x plus the 4. That's it. Let's go to the next one. Here you see that I have a negative 20, which means I'm going to be looking for a number. Let me multiply this again. 1 times negative 20 is negative 20. I'm looking for two numbers that when you multiply are going to get negative 20, which means one has to be positive, one has to be negative. And when the signs are going to be different, then there's going to be a subtraction problem to get this guy right here. So right now, don't worry about the signs when you're doing your factor box. Just do your factor box. I'm going to try to do mine fairly quickly here. Oh, that's it. And this time, since one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative, I'm looking for two numbers that really would subtract to get 1x. Well, that's this right here. But when you subtract them, it's going to be a positive 1x. So which one of those has to be positive? Which which one has to be negative? Well, that's my negative, that's my positive. Now I'm going to rewrite this, and again, I'm not going to do that first one. I'm just going to do x squared minus 4x plus 5x minus 20. And again, everything's the same except for this middle part right here should equal that 1x, and it does. I'm going to split it into two groups. I'm going to start with this first group and say, alrighty, x squared minus 4x, I can pull out an x, and that's it. And I'll have x times x is x squared minus a 4. Then I'm going to bring that plus sign there. Pull out, what's the greatest common factor of 5 and 20? Well, 5. Can't pull out an x because the 20 doesn't have one. So 5 times 1 is 5x, x, and then minus 4. Again, good. Both of my binomials here, both of my parentheses sets are the same thing. So that's going to be one of my binomials. And then the numbers on the outside of them are my other one. If you don't believe me, multiply it out and see if it works. All right, here we go. We're going to do 1 times 18 is 18. And do my factor box. 1, 18, 2, 9, 3, 6, not a 4, not a 5. I'm done. All right. And then it is positive, which means both signs are the same, which means I'm going to be adding to get to the 9, but the 9 is negative, so both my numbers are going to be negative. Which one of those pairs adds up to 9? Well, you should see the 3 and the 6. So both of them are going to be negative because a negative 3 times negative 6 is still going to give me that positive 18. And so I'll do x squared minus 3x minus 6x plus the 18. Again, I'm just rewriting everything, but this middle section I'm separating into the two. Put my slash, and then what's the greatest common factor? X, and then x times x, and x minus 3, good. Now this is going to be a little tricky because that minus sign does have to come down. And then as you look at that, what is the greatest common factor of 6x and 18? It's a 6. And negative 6 times what is negative 6x? X. Now careful, here we go. Negative 6 times what is positive 18? Negative 3. And whew, that's good because those two in the parentheses are the same. So I have x minus 3, and then the outside one's x minus 6. All right, one more of the easy ones. Here we go. 1 times 24 is 24. And then, let's see, 1, 24, 2, 12, 3, 8, 4, and 6. That's it. And because 24 is negative, that means one is going to be positive, one's going to be negative, which means I'm going to be finding the difference of the two to get a 10. So which two of those, if I were to subtract them, would give you 10? Yep, the 2 and the 12. And so which one has to be positive, which one has to be negative for the negative 10? Well, the biggest one would have to be negative. So this is positive. And here we go, x squared, then plus 2x minus 12x minus 24. The greatest common factor of the first part is just an x. This is starting to look the same. Bring out that minus. The greatest common factor of 12 and 24 is a 12. And left would be the x plus the 2. And my answer is x plus 2 and x minus 12. Now, what I would suggest is for you to pause this video and do these problems on your own and then restart the video to see if you have the right answers. Here you go. Take a look at these answers and see if they match your answers. Some of the questions you might have is, why do we multiply the a times the c when our a value is always a 1? And the answer is it's coming up in the next slide. All right. Oh, here's another question some people ask, and that is, when you're taking something like this right here, and you have a 1b and a 7b, does it matter which one of those you put first? Is it so important that I put the 1 first instead of the 7? The answer is no. And when you write the two binomials, since they're multiplying, it doesn't matter which one you write first. I could have done b plus 7 and then b plus 1. All right, here's where the a and the c are very important. When I do this, I have a 5 for my a and 8 for my C. And 5 times 8 is 40. So I'm making my box for 40. 140, 220, 410, 5, 8. There you go. And because whatever's multiplying is going to be a positive 8, and I know none of these multiplied are going to be positive 8, but just trust me, this is going to work. But positive does mean that the two are going to have the same sign, which means I'm going to be adding to get to the 14. So which of these numbers, which of these pairs, when you add, get to 14? Well, if you said this one, you are correct. And because they're both going to be, because the answer for 14 is negative, both of them have to be negative. So -4, -10. So here we go. Same thing as we did before. 5x squared minus 4x minus 10x plus my 8. Separate it right here. What's my greatest common factor for the first half? Is again just an x. And that leaves me with a 5x minus a 4. And then I'm going to bring that minus down. Now the greatest common factor of 10x and 8 is a 2. Right? No x's because the 8 doesn't have one. And so -2 times what equals -10x? A 5x. And -2 times what gives me a positive 8? You should say -4. And there we go. I'm going to have a 5x minus 4 and then an x minus 2. All right, let's do a couple more examples. This one I'm going to multiply the 9 times the 40, and that gives me 360. And in the moment, don't worry about the negative sign. Now, 360, this could take just a little bit of time here. Let's see, 5 goes in there 7 times 72. 6 is another 60. And now what we're looking for here, because if we could find it, we would stop, is that because it's a -40, it's going to be one of the numbers is going to be negative, one is positive. So we're going to be finding the difference. Two numbers that when you subtract them get to 9. We're not there yet. Alrighty, so we're going to keep going. And eventually we're going to get to a 15 and a 24. And sure enough, the difference between those two are 9. And it's going to be a positive 9, so that means my biggest one has to be positive and my smallest one has to be negative. Alrighty, 9x squared minus 15x plus 24x minus 40. Split it. Greatest common factor of 9x squared and 15x is a 3x. And so 3 times 3 is 9, and then I need another x to complete that. And then 3 times -5 is -15, and I don't need any more x's to complete that. Plus, greatest common factor of 24 and 40. Now, if you're sitting here going, I have no idea, use that first parentheses as a help. What times 3 would give you 24? What times 5 gives you 40? Oh, that's an 8. That's probably your greatest common factor. 8. And then 8 times what is 24x? 3x. And 8 times what is -40? -5. -5. So here we go. 3x minus 5. And then a 3x plus 8. Bam. All right, one more before I'm going to have you practice one. 5 times 81 is 405. I know, seems kind of big, right? And they're going to be what? Positive and negative or the same sign? Look at the -81. That means one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative, which means I'm going to be subtracting to get 36. So I'll start with 1 and 405, 3 and 135, 5 and 81, and 9 and 45. You asked me how I got that so fast, I already had it written down. So I'm looking for two things that when I subtract I get 36, and that would be this last set right here. Now my answer can be negative, which means then my biggest one has to be negative. Here I go. Now one of the things I like to do, if I have one negative, one positive, I always like to put the negative one in the first half. That way I don't have to worry about factoring out a negative number. There you go. And again, one more time, check. Is this negative 36 and this negative 45x plus 9x, are they going to be the same thing? Yeah. All right. Here we go. I'm going to pull out a 5x. And what's left in here is just an x, because 5x times x is x squared. 5 times a negative 9 is negative 45. I don't need any more x's. Here, the greatest common factor is a 9, and I'm going to have an x minus 9. Great. X minus 9, and then a 5x plus 9. And again, if you are not sure that that's right, use the distributive property or FOIL or the box, multiply it out, see if you get to that same trinomial. All right, now what I'd like you to do is pause the video and try this one on your own. When you're done, start the video and see if you have the correct answer. Check out my answer. Is that what you got? You notice on the right-hand side when I'm doing my factor box, as soon as I got to the 6 and 14, I knew I could stop. And I was looking for factors of 84 that had the same sign, which meant that they had to add to be 20. That's what I was looking for. All right, well, have some fun.